At the height of their self-indulgence in the late 90s, WCW had something like 700,000 wrestlers on the roster, and that's without counting loanies from Japan and those sent on excursions in the opposite direction. So it's only natural that not everybody could be pushed to the top of the card. In fact, the fat contracts and creative control of an elite black and white cartel almost guaranteed that all but about 5 or 6 veterans made it to the table in the first place. That's not to say that WCW didn't try to make new stars, it's just that when they did, they usually fell foul of the Hogan test. WCW did turn the boat around on a handful of potential new draws in the pre-NWO era, but nearly all of them were owing to a yellow and red invention. After the NWO emerged, routes to the top were like that smelly Gandalf bridge in Lord of the Rings. Mid-Carter, you shall not pass! I mean, they can't have been serious about Berlin in the first place, right? I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 7 wrestlers that WCW gave up on. Number 7, the Renegade. WCW were so convinced of signing the Ultimate Warrior in 1995 that they started hyping his debut at Uncensored, calling it the ultimate surprise. Problem was that they didn't actually get Warrior to sign. Not that that mattered though, the company kept promoting him anyway, until we hit the pay-per-view, the music hit, and a dollar store Warrior ran out from the back. The Renegade came out in a dodgy Jimmy Hart version of Warrior's theme, and he was clad in some slightly off face paint. Now, Renegade looked a bit like Warrior if you squinted, he moved like him too, and he was even pushed like him as well. But this wasn't Warrior, and WCW fans pooped all over it. When the actual Warrior contacted the media to dispel any suggestions that this smaller, crappier copy was actually him, the game was up. Their scheme exposed, WCW took the television title off the Renegade and shoved him down the card. Number 6, the Demon. WCW gave up on the Kiss Demon the moment they were no longer contractually obliged to feature it. This was a product of Eric Bischoff's self-indulgence. The Demon showed up in 1999 and was part of a deal that saw Gene Simmons and his aging band of rockers slaughter a segment of Nitro, with the Demon guaranteed a pay-per-view main event for the use of Simmons' likeness, with a number of other Demons representing the other band members supposed to show up as well. The Warriors of Kiss project was canned alongside Bischoff, who may be the only man in the world who liked the idea. When the Kiss concert drew one of the worst ratings in Nitro history, Eazy-E was dismissed before the Demon could even make his in-ring debut. But WCW still had a deal to honour, and so he was flung into a special main event, quote unquote, against the Wall at Super Brawl, where he was soundly defeated. Number 5, Berlin. This was WCW's attempt at repackaging Alex Wright as a Europunk, and they were so convinced it would be a successful move that they locked him into a preposterous contract worth $375,000 a year in 1999, despite the fact that Wright, while talented, had done the square root of nothing in WCW up to that point. The promotion was always going to go all in on Berlin after that bumper new contract, so they did. His debut promo, however, was something else. Gene Okerlund squirmed in his shoes as the German delivered one line after another in his native tongue, and every single one of them was translated by an interpreter, Uta Ludendorff, a woman with the acting skills of David Hasselhoff. The awful, awkward segment met the derision of fans, and when WCW realised just how close a resemblance their new character bore to the perpetrators of the tragic Columbine massacre, Berlin was binned. He was back by September, but WCW were no longer interested. In his first major program, Buff Bagwell refused to lose, and replacement Jim Duggan refused to sell. WCW eventually decided that the Wall of "That's the Wall, brother" fame had more upside than Wright, and that meant it was Iron Curtains for Berlin. Number 4, Chris Jericho. Jericho was caught in Bischoff's talent dragnet in 1996, as the WCW honcho looked to saturate Nitro with great technical wrestlers. Unfortunately, this policy clashed with the star-studded scene at the top of the card, meaning that Eric's vanilla midgets were restricted to the undercard. Lost in the shuffle was Lionheart Chris Jericho, a generic babyface with less colour than a Humphrey Bogart noir film. Bischoff reckoned Jericho could be the new Sting, but his retrograde character had already been made passé. Going heel was the only solution, and in taking matters into his own hands, WCW, well, they lost all interest in Jericho's push. This was despite Jericho becoming the most entertaining part of Nitro, as he was given 15 minutes every single week to pretty much just do whatever the hell he wanted. Over time, he became dangerously over, and as soon as he started tapping on the ceiling by challenging Goldberg, WCW noticed. But Goldberg, well, he refused to answer the call, and Jericho was admonished for his rudeness. From there, the writing was on the wall for him in Georgia. Number 3. Conan. Conan came to WCW as part of the same talent drive that brought Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko through the door as well, only he was originally slated to play with the biggest boy of them all, Hulk Hogan. That's according to Conan himself anyway. The story goes that Booker Kevin Sullivan had promised him several matches with Hogan in the US and Mexico, hence why the two of them posed for an unlikely belt-tugging promo shot early on. Unfortunately though, it never transpired. Conan speculated that as soon as WCW found out he could only work the Mexican style, they lost interest, though he still entered the company with a bang, winning the US title in his first week. It just wasn't quite as loud a bang as he would have wanted. Number 2. Bret Hart. The Hitman was the most talked about talent in town after the Montreal Screwjob, but despite being handed the biggest pink and black gift horse in the world, WCW didn't seem all that arsed about pushing their red hot commodity. Hart's first port of call in Georgia was as a referee, calling the shots barely as Sting wrestled Hulk Hogan at Starrcade 97. He immediately felt secondary, and that was hardly helped by the underwhelming match itself, and while WCW did try to position Hart more appropriately after that, it felt half-assed. That's because it was. For as long as the Hitman was in the main event picture, he was always flanked by the old guard, made to look prominent but never essential, even as WCW champion. WCW eventually let Hart go when a concussion suffered at the boot of Goldberg ended his in-ring career. He left with barely a whimper. Such was the damage that WCW had done to his stock. And number 1, Steve Austin. Though he never reached the same heights as his industry-defining run as Stone Cold, it's something of a misconception that WCW never got behind Steve Austin. Stunning Steve was the most talented component of the early 90s most threatening stable, the Dangerous Alliance, who regularly pushed into the main event scene. And when he left the stable, Austin's stock stayed high as well, teaming with Brian Pillman to enjoy high-profile matches with the likes of Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. When he returned from injury in 1995, Austin found any renewed push blocked by a Bischoff-shaped barrier. Eazy-E just didn't see him as a star, and furthermore, he found him a bit of a pain in the arse. His walking papers were soon served, and, well, you already know what happened after that. So that's our list, but what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comment section below. After that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and then follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye!